Welcome to Stories and Songs, a series of interviews with musicians from the world of jazz and improvisation. I'm Sophia Carbonara, and it's my great pleasure today to be talking to Ingrid Jensen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
My first question for you is, what have been the pivotal events in your musical journey?
Pivotal events in my musical journey, things that moved me from one place to the other, right? Like that shifted my perspective on what I was doing. I think in the beginning, it was just accepting that I was going to play the trumpet instead of the trombone, because I wanted to play trombone. But then realizing that through band, like playing in groups, in small groups and big band, that what I had found through just playing the trumpet was enough. That was my first pivotal event. It's like, okay, let go of the fact that you're not playing the trombone, which was your first choice, and just figure out how to play this chunk of metal. Then it became much more challenging for me because I wasn't a very strong technical player. I didn't have a great teacher when I started out, especially on the trumpet. I had great music teachers, but the trumpet was a little bit of we didn't get along too well. So some of the pivotal changes of getting me to where I needed to be happened through some summer camps. We were talking about Banff, right? You went to Banff. That was one camps when I went and studied, was able to work with Kenny Wheeler. A camp that was very pivotal with the Phil Woods Quintet, and Hal Galper became one of my mentors, the piano player with the Phil Woods Quintet. He heard me play and he became one of these people just giving me things to work on, here, shed this forward motion stuff, make sure you can play everything in every key, and effortless harmony understanding. So that was another, there were two summer camps that were really, I met people that I needed to meet, we connected, and I also met people my own age, but then I also met my mentors, and they encouraged me to go forward with what I was doing. I would say Berklee was a pivotal event, just being in a school with so many amazing people, from Mark Turner to Donnie McCaslin, and Jim Black was there. All these great musicians that I connected with, Danilo Perez, Jeffrey Kieser, endless folks. So there was pivots happening daily, on a daily basis when I was at Berklee, because there was so many amazing players. And then when I finished school, I went to Denmark, and I had a summer of just, no school, just no more school. I was done with school. And I just did a lot of transcribing and really learned tunes and got things together that I couldn't seem to get together during college for some reason. And so that led to another pivotal event, which was moving to New York for a year and meeting my idol, Clark Terry, finally meeting him and having, making a great connection with him through the Village Vanguard. I sat in there one night, and the rest was history. He always would make me sit in on stage and play with his band, and whoever he was playing with, he'd just drag me up on stage and make me play. So that was huge, because through that relationship, that's how I got a record deal with the record label I ended up on, Enja Records. And it was Clark's support of me that really helped pivot me into places that I didn't think I was at the time, especially confident enough or worthy of being in, like on big stages and playing with famous people, and then having my own record deal where I could record with whoever I wanted. Again, pivotal, very pivotal. All three records I did for Enja Records changed me. Each one was an evolution to the next place of seeing what was possible in music for me. And then during that phase in I guess it was my 20s, there was double pivotal time with Lori Frink, who I studied the trumpet with. She taught the Caruso method. The first time I lived in New York in the 90s for about a year, she was amazing to me. I took probably 20 lessons with her. It really changed the way I played the trumpet. I was able to finally play the trumpet with, some set of proper skill and ease on the instrument. And the second time I studied with her was when I moved back. I moved to New York for 1 year, and then I moved to Europe because I had a teaching job, obviously very pivotal there too. I learned German. I traveled all over Europe, had an amazing time hanging out with Art Farmer and a lot of great musicians. And then also meeting people who played more in the avant-garde scene and people that played in the funk scene and in the contemporary classical scene, not just straight ahead jazz. So that phase in my mid-20s, 23 to 22 to 26, I guess I was 25, gave me a real step outside of the United States, which was very important for me at that time because it helped me to realize, that I could operate on a musical platform outside of just the New York grind, as we say. But when I did get the record deal, I really realized I couldn't live in Europe. I needed to be back in New York because I really wanted to play with a lot of the musicians that were based in New York and Boston. So that was when I got to study with Laurie the second time. And that was actually due to an injury, which maybe relates to your next questions. And because of that injury, the recovery and all of the therapies that I did around that, from learning Chinese martial arts to studying the brain and the body and all of these parts of life that are necessary, including the trumpet, that really pivoted me into a position of great knowledge and expertise. I could go on. Is that enough?
The journey across, yeah, it's beautiful. And the journey across the place is so beautiful. It's funny you mentioned about, thinking cross-continentally being, temporarily visiting Australia now. So it's like beyond the US for sure. My second question for you, as you alluded to, what obstacles have you had to overcome during your musical life and how have you dealt with them?
A lot of obstacles. I guess there were probably more than I even was aware of, which I think is the gift that music gives us all. Those of us who are truly in it for the reasons that I don't want to say the right or the wrong, that there's right or wrong reasons, but you don't have a choice, right? If you know that music is what you do, especially this form of expression through African American influences combined with classical and contemporary harmonies without too much. I don't like the word jazz. Jazz is at the same time, that's what I thought I was playing for a long time, and I guess I kind of was. But I think the obstacle for me was connecting to that was really my self-worth and this imposter syndrome feeling I had in the early years of my playing, where I really hadn't experienced enough of playing with a vast amount of musicians yet to really understand my place in the music. Even though I had, some kind of individual approach, we all do. Everyone has an individual approach to getting their voice through their chunk of it. There's one on my bed sitting there waiting for me to end with it. So the obstacles that came my way, I think many of them just were probably peripheral. I didn't take the things too seriously when people said stupid stuff like, oh, you play really good for a girl. Those kind of things. I was like, whatever, shut up. I'm trying to play blues in all 12 keys here. I'm trying to go to a jam session and sit in and play on some tunes I've been working on. So at the same time, there is that feeling of belonging that we all would like to have when it's time to play, from a vulnerable place. This music is a very social music, and for most of my development my journey as I went through along my little trails of creating, I think I had very good people behind me and with me and supporting me. But when I reflect on other aspects of the way the music business works, I think the obstacles being a white woman, doesn't matter how good you play sometimes. In fact, if you play really good, that can also not be good. you can be kind of, I don't know, make people uncomfortable. I'm not sure what it is, but I think of all of the many opportunities which I actually knew people's music and I had studied it and I could hear my voice, my sound, my approach to the music in their groups, and really could imagine myself playing with them. And those opportunities just never came to me like they did my peers, friends who played, equally well. I think we're kind of, a lot of us were on par, but that also really helped me to realize quite soon, because one of my very wise teachers said to me, Ingrid, you're going to have to just be a leader. If you don't sit around and wait for the calls, because they're not all going to happen, not the ones you want. So some of the obstacles really led me to dig deeper in being a leader and writing music and putting bands together and believing in the sound of what it was that I was going for, that there was room in the universe for it. Right? Support whatever the adventures are of Ingrid Jensen trumpet and everything else that comes along with that. So those are some of the, those are deeper political, almost obstacles, political and kind of jazz scene oriented obstacles that everyone has to, I think, in their own way, has to kind of find their tribe and connect with, and know that that's enough on its own. And I had a really great tribe, from old 90-year-old men like Clark Terry and Al Gray and Lionel Hampton, who insisted that I would sit in whenever they played, to just, my local jam session buddies that I'd go down to the local club with and just play. People that maybe weren't even that well known yet, and now are. I think relate to this conversation too are injuries. I had a lot of injuries. I had a paralysis in my face when I was in my early 20s that happened from a lot of tension in my body from the way I was playing, but also from just pure fatigue. I was pushing myself too hard, and then I got Bell's palsy, which is not a good thing for a trumpet player. I had a lot of injuries. I had a wrist injury, I had back injuries, and I had all this stress in my body. So those things actually have been really great guiding tools for me in life to help me recover. Once you recover from an injury and you figure out what the source was, because it's not just like, oh yeah, I was in a car accident or something. It's more like, repetitive stress injuries and things like that. They are all mentally and physically and psychically related. So in that sense, I'm very lucky. I've had lots of help in those areas that I love sharing with others, so I can help them also enjoy creating, being free in their bodies.
There's so much to learn from the experiences. There's so much to learn there.
Yes.
My third question for you: do you have a motto or personal philosophy that guides you, or what advice would you share with younger musicians?
My new motto, which is not really that much of a motto, it's just more of a guide to keeping the balance. We're all fighting to keep a balance, right? Everyone wants to be able to pace themselves throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. Like, what's your goals? What are the things you want to get done? And so as the older I get, which, I'm getting older, I'm not in my 20s. I had only known what I know then, what I know now. I think struggles along the way, but my motto really is that if you can keep your brain and your body balanced, where they're not separated, so you don't get into this like separation of head and being, and things are really aligning, and in a way that your ideas can flow so that you enjoy that process, versus struggling to find things all the time and fighting and proving and whatever all those other negative things are that end up coming from our hindbrain. The old lizard brain, fight, flight, or flee. Fight. No, that would be fleeing, wouldn't it? Fight, freeze, or flee. That whole mentality. So my motto is the brain is the body and the body is the brain. I didn't make it up either. It's just that keeping everything, and actually this thing I just bought in New Zealand is all about that, right? It's the flow, this whole idea of the flow, everything flowing in this beautiful flowy way. It's no other word, but I guess connected, right? So as long as things are connecting, I don't have to go into a place of stress or have these highs and lows that really can interrupt the day-to-day process of getting stuff done, because you want to get stuff done and you want to keep growing and evolving. So if there's that constant understanding that there's always something else to learn, and keeping that balance between the brain and the body is part of that huge process, and not losing the connection. That's what I'm going for.
I'll be very happy to remember that motto. I'll be
Makes
very
sense?
happy to work on that one. You can tell it's been a hard one. My last question.
Yeah, because the brain is telling the body what's up and the body's telling the brain. Go ahead.
My last question for you is just to nominate a song or an album of your own creation that holds particular significance or meaning, and just just tell how that came to be, or your story, or what's the story of that music, and for us all to listen to.
I love that. When I saw that question, I had a different album in mind, but now I instantly go to the most empowering albums I made, which is called At Sea. And the reason it was so empowering was because I did it all on my own. I went from being with a record label, which was amazing. It was a real gift, and I was very, very lucky to be on a label in my 20s and have this experience of just hiring whoever I wanted. But at the same time, I started to become a little complacent in ways where I didn't take my music. So the record At Sea, I brought some copies to the festival. It was very, very empowering for me because I was able to just try stuff out without worrying about what is the producer going to think, what's the audience going to think. It was just really me with my band, with Matt Closey on bass, actually, in Australia. My husband on drums, Jeff Keyser, piano, Lage Lund on guitar, and just having the freedom in a studio that wasn't that expensive, and just we played free. We did a whole bunch of different stuff. I tried all these new ideas out that really, I think, catapulted my sense of ownership and self worth. Maybe I guess it was self worth in a way. When I listened back to it, I was like, wow, that's a beautiful record. Every time I listen to it, I have no problem with it, even though it's like before I had my Monette and there's pitch issues. I don't feel like it's really the best representation of my development of my sound where I'm at today versus then. But at the same time, I listen, I'm like, we made some music together, and it's kind of timeless in certain ways. So that's, and I would recommend it as in to others, as in knowing that you really can have the control over everything, from the photography to the liner notes to the tune order to the studio you record in. All of that, I did all of it myself, and I also made all the money back plus some. So that was extremely rewarding, just to see the potential within taking something that is my own and throwing it out into the universe.
Wow, I can't wait to go listen. I love that as music of that era. It's so beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, it has to. We're gonna try to re-release it and get it on Bandcamp and make some LP versions of it, because it was one of those records. I spent more money on the mix than I spent on anything, because I got the best engineer in the world to engineer it. And it was that was also a production lesson, a lesson in great production.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. I hope that you have so much to.
I hope I'm not just babbling.
No.
I just, my jet lagged brain could just be going.
Yeah, for anyone listening, you should know that
My pleasure.
got off a 25-hour journey. But thank you so much. Thank you for your time.